Hey, I'm Allie, and I'm going to be talking about Fullstack Next.js on AWS. I lead developer advocacy for AWS Amplify. I am a Spittel on social media, and since I work on this product team, if you ever have feedback for me or feature requests, please reach out, and I'll forward those on to the product folks. So, our goals for this talk are to build something really fun. We'll discuss underlying services and we'll learn a little bit about AWS Amplify. It's a set of tools for front-end and mobile developers. We'll be talking specifically about Next.js in this talk. However, it also works for just like plain React if you wanted to do that, or iOS or React Native, any of those types of things it also works with. So there are a few things that I've noticed that most web apps have. So data persistence. So instead of just data being available to one user, multiple users, authentication and authorization so that people can sign in, but also so that they have the ability to have different roles and the ability to do different things. Plus you need to have a front end. So enter AWS Amplify, which allows you to do all these things. If you go to sandbox.amplifyapp.com, you can follow along with me. So our first step is going to be to create our data. We're going to create a database using a visual interface. So if you went to that sandbox.amplifyapp.com, you can go to that homepage, you can click Get Started, then click Data and Blink Schema. Then you can add some models. So maybe a blog, which may have some posts associated with it, and then we'll add some fields. So a blog would have a name, and a post would have a title and content. Also, some fields may be required, like title. You can also change the data types of the different fields if you want. In this case, they're all strings. We're also going to add a relationship. So one blog would have many posts associated with them. So we're going to go ahead and add that relationship. Then you can test this out locally in your app. I know a lot of people don't have AWS accounts, and you have the ability to test this out locally on your machine without that AWS account if you would like. So let's talk about what's going on under the hood here. So data store allows you to have this online-offline programming model. It stores your data in IndexedDB, which is in-browser storage mechanism similar to session storage or local storage. This allows you to store more data, and it's also asynchronous, which is pretty helpful in a lot of apps as well. I said that you can test locally without an AWS account. If you do that, it's just going to have the data be offline until you deploy to the cloud. You don't need any extra code to have it sync to the cloud. Once you go ahead and deploy it, it'll automatically sync the data for you. AWS AppSync is a managed GraphQL API service. So under the hood, this is GraphQL that's being used. And Amazon DynamoDB, you gotta have something storing your data. And so it's a serverless key value document database that you can use to store your data. Under the hood, it's all under the hood though, so you don't need to use it manually or anything like that. It is there for you. So the next thing that we're going to do is deploy this all to AWS. We're going to put this out into the world. So again, if at any point you want to test locally, you can do so. You can also go back and change your models, repull to your front end, and then we're going to go ahead and deploy. So if you have an AWS account, you can sign into it, or you can create a new one. So I'm going to log into my AWS account. I'll use my name and then my password. You can also set up your app name, so Amplify Auth, and your region. I just normally tell people to choose whichever one's closest to your users or yourself if you're the first person using it. Then you can update your backend. You can manage your app content in here. So for example, I'm creating seed data, and you can create 5 rows of randomized blog posts if you want. You could also use the form to create a post as well. So I'm now going to go over and create some seed blogs. I'll again do like 5 rows of that and then link to some posts because I want this relationship between the blogs and posts, so the blogs own posts. And I'll make them all related to this first one and go ahead and save. Also, this admin UI, you can give access to different people using just an email. So only one person needs to have an AWS account. The other people can either get full access so that they could change the data setup themselves, or you could give people limited access so that they can just read the content and change that, but they can't actually change the data modeling, which you might want to give a non-technical user, for example. So the next thing that we're going to do is add backend authentication. So inside this admin UI, I'm going to click configure login and sign up and enable authentication. And then I can add multi-factor authentication, different login mechanisms, and choose password protection settings if I want to make things more or less secure for whatever reason, and then deploy. It'll ask you to confirm deployment. Once that's done deploying, then there's a similar console that you can use in order to create users and groups if you want. You can also add authentication and authorization rules to your models. So I'm going to click on my blog and add an authorization rule here. So I don't want just anybody to be able to do full CRUD on a blog. Instead, I just want them to be able to read my blog. So I'll uncheck create, update, and delete. And then I need to make it so that somebody can create a blog. So what I'll go ahead and do is I'll create a new user group. So I'll create a group of admin users. So I'll title it admin, create that group, and then I'll make it so that my admins are the people that can perform full CRUD on my data. Let's go over to the post now. So if I click on that post, then I can add different authorization rules for that. So again, I'm going to make it so that just anybody on the web can only view a post. And then I'm going to make it so that logged in users can create a new post. And in a lot of cases, you're going to want to make it so that only the person that created the post can edit it. So I'm going to enable owner-based authorization. And I want to uncheck read because I want more people to be able to view a post, but only some people to update and delete. Then save and deploy. And again, we're deployed. So now we have authentication and authorization for our application. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to create your front end. So we'll do npx create next app in order to do so. So I'm in my demos directory where I keep all the things that I'm running over and over again for these talks. So npx create next app amplify auth. Once that finishes running, I'm going to change into the directory that I created, and then I will go ahead and install AWS Amplify's libraries, and then also the React UI component. So there's libraries for Vue, Angular, React, iOS, Android, all those. And so I'm installing the one specifically for React. I'm then going to pull down my app. So if I go to local setup instructions, I can click on my app ID to clone it down and then enable the authentication on the back end there as well. And then you can see a lot of code generation happen. So first the code generation from create next app, and then also for Amplify as well. So there's this backend directory. Inside of there is a GraphQL config file. There's also this AWS exports file. And that's going to have configuration information about your application. Once it's deployed, it's going to be fully populated with like your root to your API and things like that. But since if it's not deployed, it'll be an empty object. So I'm going to import Amplify and auth mode strategy type. So when I was enabling authorization, I had multiple types of authorization. So I had role-based with the admin groups. I had just whether somebody was signed in or not. And then I also had some other things as well. Oh, and this is the AWS exports file that I was talking about, by the way. And so I'm going to have to change a couple things in my app.js file so that my whole application has access to Amplify. So I'll do amplify.configure, and then I'll have my link to make it so that data store is able to handle multiple auth modes instead of just one, because I just enabled a bunch of different types of auth. So auth mode strategy type is auth mode strategy type dot multi-auth. What a mouthful. So now it's configured so that my front end is tied to my back end. What we're using for authentication is Amazon Cognito, which allows you to add sign-up, sign-in, access control, and multi-factor if you want, and social auth. So we're going to add that to the front end as well. We're going to use the UI components to implement this. So I've now updated that app.js. My whole app will have access to Amplify. So I'm going to create a sign-in.js file in order to create the sign-in form in there. So I'm going to create a sign-in function here. I'll export it. I'll add in a header and just say like hello. I'll also use the next link component and link back to my homepage. And I'll add a div because I'm gonna run into React issues of returning to elements. So I'll wipe out everything from my index.js and just link into that sign in component. So again, importing that link component from Next. Then I'm going to run my local server. And right now I just have this link to the sign-in page and then link to the home page. So not super interesting yet. But what I'll do is I'll import the with authenticator component from the React UI components from Amplify. And then I will wrap my export in that. It's a higher order React component. So now it's going to make it so that I have to sign in order to see the sign in page. You could also add this on your home component if you wanted it instead. So I'll create a username and my password there. I'm blocking out my password, and then in my email I get a verification code, and you can change that email text. I just did like forgot password, but definitely update that. And then you're able to sign in. And if you sign out, then it'll ask you to sign out. And if you go back to that page, it would ask you to sign in. But we don't have logout yet. So the next step is to get the current user, and we'll use the Amplify JavaScript libraries for that. So what we're going to do is now in this home component, make it so that you either conditionally see the sign in or the sign out button. So we have use state and use effect from React, and the use effect will run on the component being initialized. And so I'm going to have this get user so that I can just have an asynchronous function in there. I'll add a try catch. Good practice for all your asynchronous calls. So then I'll import auth from AWS Amplify. And then in here, inside this use effect, I'm going to have the await for the auth.current authenticated user. And so this will grab whatever user is currently signed in, the current user session, and some information about that. So I'm going to set that in state as well. So I'll set the user to be null by default or undefined, set my user to that user. If there's an error, I'll console error that error. You probably want to implement a true conditional in that case. So I'm going to add a ternary operator in here. So if there's a user, then I want to have a sign out button, else I want to sign in. So I'll have the sign in as the else branch there. And then I'll have a button for sign out. On click, I want to actually have it so they can sign out. So I'll have an asynchronous function here. And I'll await auth.signout. So once they click on that button, it'll sign them out. And then I also want to set that user back to null. And you could do more complex conditionals based off of that too, like only show forms if they're signed in or signed out, and use those authorization rules that we used on the front end as well. So the next thing that we want to do is render all of our blogs on the page. So what we're gonna go ahead and do here is I'll import my blog, and from Amplify, I'm going to have to import with SSR context. So this is going to allow me to run Amplify code on the server side. I'll also do serialized model, and this will allow me to convert a JSON or convert an object into a JSON essentially. And then I'll import blog from source models. It was cogent in the pull step. So I'm going to create a get server side props function, take my request, structure it, and then I'll use with SSR context in order to be able to run this on the server side. So blog data is going to be my variable. I'll do another try catch block, always good practice. And then I'll set my blog data to the results of asynchronous server-side data store query. So data store, again, is what we're using for our data, and .query for blog is going to query to get all of the blogs, or all instances of that blog model that we created. So then I'll console error the error if there is one, and return the props object with the blogs, and I'll need to use that serialized model in order to turn that into a true object. So serialized model with my blog data. Now in here, I'll destructure my blogs and I'll map through them. So for each blog, I'll go ahead and return a header. I'll use the blog's ID as a key that's automatically populated. And I'll do the blog's name in the body there. Then if I save that, you can see that all my blogs showed up on the page. We're making progress. Our app is becoming more and more of an app. You now need to sign in and you can view all the blogs. So the next thing that you might want to do is create a new post. So what we're going to go ahead and do is implement this. So I'm going to, I don't like writing forms, so I'm going to use like window.prompt for all of this to make it really simple, but in real life, you definitely want to create a form. So I'm going to import data store from AWS Amplify. I used AWS Amplify in the last portion of the demo, but I used it under SSR instead of using it directly. So I'm going to import it so that I can use it directly here. And then I'll use it on the client side instead of the server side. I'm also going to import my post model. Then I'll create a button. When you click that button, you're going to be able to create a post, and I'll implement a function that will fire on click. So let's implement that create post. It's an asynchronous function. Again, it's going to need to run code and no forms. So I'm going to do window.prompt title, and then my content, which will be window.prompt with the content. And then I'm going to create a new post instance. So I will eventually save it to data store. So I will say that. And then inside of there, I will instantiate a new post. I'll provide to that post the title and content that I created right above. And then I will also add the blog ID. So normally you'd want the actual ID of whatever blog that post belongs to, but since I have the blogs already passed in as props, I'm just gonna use the first one from that array and then its ID from that. So our posts belong to blogs, so we need to provide that blog ID. So then what I'll do is I wanna query all of my posts. So I'm doing await data store.query with my post, and then I want to console log those posts. So you can see here, I'm going to create a new one. Hi and hello, very, very creative. And then if I look at my console, you'll see that my blog model has an owner. So back in our authorization rules, we set it up so that each post, certain behaviors are restricted to the owners. So you can only update a post if you are the owner of that. And so this owner field is populated here. And what you could do is you could create some logic so that the create form and the delete form only show up when the owner matches the current signed in user. You could also only have this form show up if a user is signed in, which you would need to have because of our backend authentication rules. So if you want to learn more, you can do so. We have full server-side render support for Next.js, and you can check out our docs at docs.amplify.aws. I'm Spittel, again, everywhere, so if you have any feedback or questions, please reach out to me there. I'm also hiring, so if you want to work on as an engineer on this or a developer advocate, hit me up. Thank you so much.